Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. We are back for our Leicester preview, the first game back at the Cottage for the 24-25 season, off the back of a slightly disappointing loss to Man United, but a chance to get the season back on track early doors. Here, joining me for today, we have Dave at Crave. How are we going, Dave?
Yeah, really good. Excited for Saturday. I'm going to be getting there nice and early because we're bound to have ticket issues with the whole new system. So I reckon that's why the club have given everyone a free drink with their season ticket, is to get people through those gates early and to stop the problems. So I'll be making most use of that free drink. And anyone else who doesn't want theirs, please feel free to give them to me as you see me inside the stadium. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
I like that the solution to stopping the problems is ply everyone with free booze, just to make it really, smooth. Thanks for joining us, Dave. You weren't expecting to have you with us today, but we've got you for at least half the podcast, hopefully. So good to have you here. Dad, how are we going tonight?
I'm very well, thanks. I just had a thought that maybe what we could do is test Dave's popularity by the number of free drinks he gets on Saturday at the Cottage.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea.
Yeah?
Yeah, but when poor old Dave comes home sober, what does that say?
Well, just needs a cuddle, that's all.
And finally, Sammy, how are we going tonight?
Sammy, nowhere near the hammy as I live in Australia, but I am going good. We've got David Crave. I don't know what you do with Elton. That's a whole other creative endeavor. But outside of lyrical wordplay, I'm doing very good. I'm very excited to be here, and yeah, let's just rock. There's so much.
I was going to say we don't have Skibby with us tonight, but he is going to have to change his username. I think we need to start a petition for that, seeing as he will no longer be in the Putney end. So how can you possibly be Putney's perspective sitting in the hammy end? We'll get that petition up online as soon as we can. But guys, let's get into it. As always, just a reminder, we have the That's So Craven Discord, which is running full tilt at the moment with all the transfer news going on. Please do make sure you join. You'll find the link in our bio on Twitter, Facebook, and everywhere you find our links. Also, the cravenpod.com website. We just released our midweek moment, so please have a quick read there. Full recap of everything Fulham from the last 7 days in one easy-to-digest article. But guys, let's get straight into it. Dave, I'll throw to you first. Leicester City, promoted side, playing them in our first home game. How do you see this one panning out?
Well, look, we've got to look at this as a massive opportunity to get a home win. It's a newly promoted team. They actually got a pretty good result at the end against Spurs. I watched a bit of the first half of that, and I just didn't think Leicester looked very good at all. And I thought Spurs were going to run away with it, but they managed to get back into the game. I think that's because Spurs didn't really take their chances, though. And I expect that, we're going to get chances on Saturday. And if we take them, then of course we should walk away with this with 3 points. Be really disappointed for anything less than 3 points from a newly promoted side, especially them coming to us playing away from home. We must be favourites, and we need to take advantage of that. Obviously, we've made some signings this week. I don't think, or we will be making some signings this week. I'm not sure they'll be ready to be integrated from the start. We'll get onto that, I'm sure, but it might lift the side to get over the disappointment of Friday. And fingers crossed for the right result.
Yeah, there's some talk of Sander Burge, I believe, joining training today. Is that going to be too soon to see him straight into the team? I would have thought so, but will we see him on the bench again? I would have thought so. Sammy, it's always a bit nerve-wracking when you play those newly promoted sides, and we saw it on the weekend with Leicester getting a very good result, really, against a Tottenham side who are always going to be a tough team to play, except for Fulham. How do you feel like their bounce is going to be, their first away game of the season? Do you think there's still going to be that same level that they had on opening day, or do you think it might drop off slightly?
I still reckon there'll be a bit of a bounce. I mean, it's really hard to dislike Leicester. I feel like they're really, really lovable. Vardy's back in the Premier League. It's exciting. He scored a goal. It's basically everything that you want outside of your respected teams. Like they're just really, really lovable teams. So they're always going to come back in with a lot of excitement. And I think they feed off of that. I would hope that it would simmer down by about the second half at the Cottage. And realistically, I feel that the hype train might not necessarily it'll leave the station, but I feel like it's definitely going to stall at some point because at the end of the day, they still aren't necessarily what I would consider a Premier League squad. But they got a lot of energy. They're little pocket rockets. I think it's pretty fair to say we clearly have the better team. I mean, desire is one thing. It's interesting to compare them to Tottenham because Tottenham are in transition as well, and we're in transition as well. But I feel that we're in a better transition to the transition that Tottenham are currently in, if that kind of makes sense. It'll be great to see BDR back. I thought he actually played really, really well for Leicester. He's was part of the build-up play for Vardy's goal the other day. So, I mean, I hope he gets a really nice, warm reception. But no, I want to spank him. I want to absolutely spank him.
What, him personally?
Spank him.
I'd spank Bobby. He's a lovely, lovely boy. I'd spank him with all the love in my heart.
Yeah, it's interesting you listening to all of you, you're sort of seeing it from their perspective. I kind of feel like this is the Fulham team that Leicester might have a half chance against, because I tell you what, next round, with the signings,
after the window closes.
Yeah.
After the window closes, and when we get these boys into the squad fully integrated, exciting things. I also think that, there might be a little bit of a Premier League bounce for them. And as Dave was going through all the things that he thought might happen that we need to do, take our chances, I'm thinking, we're not great at taking our chances. And, look, we are surely a better side. As we were discussing last week and at the end of the United game, whilst we didn't get the result there, we looked every bit a Premier League side, albeit a bit rusty and with a few problems here and there. We're a good side. We must be absolutely bookies' favourite to take all 3 points, and this would be a disappointment if we didn't get them.
Yeah, I agree.
To follow up from that, Dad, do you think we saw enough from this Fulham team against Man United to warrant being quite positive? I know we obviously lost, and realistically, it's going to be the same 11 going into this game against Leicester. But do you feel like we showed enough attacking intent, defensive integrity to actually get the result we're looking for against Leicester?
Well, that's a whole podcast in that.
what are we doing now?
I mean, in that one question, I think you could talk for an hour on that. But look, there are many things. I feel like we went into and came out of that United game not really learning very much. All of the problems that actually materialized were pretty well understood. I don't think there were any surprises. Mooney's form hasn't been great. Would have been terrific if he turned it round. He had a pretty good game, but didn't score. We have some problems playing out of the back. When we're pressed, we kind of anticipated that was going to happen. We have a solution. It's already been done. We had a problem in midfield where we just couldn't control the game, and Casemiro kind of had a very good 50 or 60 minutes, and we couldn't counter that. And I think we knew that going into the game, and we're well on the way to sorting those problems out. So I'm okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
Dave,
we may not have a solution for this Saturday, but it's coming.
Well, what I was going to throw to Dave was: do you see any glaring holes in this Fulham team as they are currently? Obviously, they're being plugged slowly but surely by Tony Khan and the recruitment team. But going into this Leicester game, do you see any massive issues? I know we come up against Jamie Vardy, who scored in his first game back in the Premier League and still looks quite potent. And look, it's not a terrible Leicester team compared to the teams that came up last season. I'd say it's the promoted teams look stronger in general so far. But do you think there's something that Leicester would look at exploiting in this Fulham lineup?
Most certainly. I think we saw on Friday that without tossing, Bassi had to be the kind of centre back that, started the moves, was kind of building play from the back, and he struggled, if we're honest. Made a few errors. It didn't look comfortable in doing that role. We obviously don't want Diop to do that role because, if he makes a mistake, you can be guaranteed it ends up in the back of our net. So they went with Bassi. But I think that's a bit of an issue. We don't have a natural ball playing centre back at the moment with Bassi and Diop. And that's how we like to play. So, the worry is that Leicester press us into making mistakes at the back. They could create some chances. So that's the biggest issue that I've got. It actually made me think earlier that if we could get Anderson over the line in time, it might be worth gambling and putting him straight in. We know he's fit. He played at the weekend on Sunday. It's not like it's his first time playing football at Craven Cottage. So if you were going to take a risk, I think that would be a sensible risk to take, just because we know it's a potential weakness in that area.
I think it's a fair call, to be honest. I mean, Anderson, we know he's a Premier League level defender. It's not like he's unfit. Like you said, he's done a full pre-season at Palace, expecting to play for them for the season, and then played on the weekend. Didn't have the best game on the weekend, to be fair, but he played, so he's able to slot in. It's just, I think we know with Marco Silva, he doesn't like to drop people in straight away. I agree. I'd like to see him take a risk because that was definitely our biggest weakness. We gave the ball away so many times when Calvin Bassey was pressured and we just didn't have an out, whereas Anderson is that player who can give you the out. Sammy, do you see Diop potentially getting dropped, or do you think we're going to stick with it again?
I mean, it entirely kind of depends on whether. I mean, I know we'll talk about this later in a lot more depth, but it really depends on Anderson, because I do think if Anderson comes in, that's pretty much you drop him straight in. Premier League proven, even outside of just knowing the Cottage and just being familiar with Fulham. At the end of the day, if you have a Premier League proven defender of his caliber, when you aren't 100% on your previous right centre back, it's kind of a no-brainer for me. He's probably like one of the few exceptions that you would just drop straight into the squad. Ooh, that is a very unpopular opinion, Skibby. Sorry, that took me very off guard. Skibby's just popped in the chat Cuenca and Diop as an option, and I do not agree. Love Skibby, but no, I don't agree with that at all. What were we talking about?
Yeah, that's a very unpopular opinion. Cuenca, I do like Cuenca a lot, but I think Cuenca alongside Diop would be not ideal. I don't think Diop's a terrible defender, but when you look at someone like Anderson compared to Diop, Anderson's clearly the better defender. Anderson and Cuenca, that could be quite interesting. A lot of passing ability there and ball playing ability. There's also, and I'll throw this one to you, Dad, there's also the potential for maybe bringing in someone like Castagna, who's better on the ball, and maybe changing our focus when we try and play out of the back and going to the right where Diop can work with Castagna, or Anderson can work with Castagna.
You read my mind.
Yeah. Do you think that's a possibility? I mean, Kenny Tete had a very good game with a lot of people saying he was their player of the match. Do you think you could potentially see Castagna replacing him?
Yeah, I think very strategically I could, until Anderson. I can imagine, even though it would probably be a very, very fair and low risk move, I can see Silva not going that way. Silva's a meticulous planner. I think he wants to be completely certain that everyone understands what they're doing, particularly if it's such a key position where the build-up actually begins and where we could get absolutely pressurized. I think he probably just wouldn't want to roll the dice on there being any confusion and any likelihood that there's a misunderstanding between the players and whose role is what. But the one way you might get around it is leave Diop in place, switch that instigation role to Castagna, who could obviously do a job, just until Anderson is ready to come in and fulfill his role.
Yeah.
Mm.
Talking of the rest of the team, I guess let's assume that Anderson does sign in time, but probably is realistically on the bench. Similarly with Sander Berge as well, because they're not quite ready. Do you see any other potential changes apart from Castagna and Tete? And I guess, Dave, I'll throw to you really. We're looking at Lukic playing in the 6, Pereira playing in the 8, and Smith Rowe in the 10. Were you happy with the way they performed against Man United? Would you be happy with them to play the same roles against Leicester?
I think that I would be happy with pretty much the same 11 that started against Man United. I suspect that's what's going to happen. I think the concern, as we've already identified, is potentially getting caught at the back, trying to play it out. But I just have a feeling he might play the same side that played that game. And but I think really it was kind of errors in defence at the on Friday, and we didn't quite make the most of our chances, did we, on Friday night? So if we can be more clinical in the final third, and then I think it can work. So I wouldn't be concerned if it was the same 11.
Yeah, Sammy, same question.
Well, it's a bit difficult because like the first game of the season, I mean, we can rib on Man United, but they're still a top tier team with very, very comprehensive players, a lot of young talent that were not necessarily all over us, but didn't necessarily allow us to play to our full potential. Smith Rowe looked a little bit out of sorts. Pereira, again, he's new to that position, and so as a result, like it felt quite disjointed watching it. But that is best 11 at this current stage. So I don't really think there's better options that could realistically make a better team at this current stage. So it's kind of like you just have to go with what we currently have. I can't really elaborate too much more on that. Like, because I can't see Wilson coming in and doing a better job for, say, like Iwobi, and if like you were to move like Iwobi to the right. And I can't really think of a better option than Traore, and I don't want to replace Menez for Jimenez. So it's all over the shop.
But it's not a crisis, is it? I mean,
No.
you just need to make an adjustment, a realistic adjustment, and not always try and play out of the back. Because even if Leno lumped the ball into midfield, we're man for man, we're a better side, and we'll still actually likely get possession and win most of the challenges and actually still outdo them. So I don't know that you have to intricately unpick it and kind of stick to your game plan. That is our preferred tactic, but we haven't got the personnel for it at the moment. But the cavalry's arriving.
Bobby Decordova-Reid's going to score, isn't he? He's just going to come out of absolutely nowhere, like he always just does, in a really annoying position, and he's just going to do it. And he's going to be coming from like right back or something fucking ridiculous like that, but like just in peak Bobby style. And
I mean, you saw with the Leicester goal against Spurs, the ball only just goes over the top of Bobby's head, and Jamie Vardy's completely unmarked at the back post. So he still gets himself in very good positions. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if he pops up on the score sheet. He gets a mention in my top tip a bit later, which we will have a look at. Let's have a look at some recent form. We obviously know Fulham's quite well. A pre-season majority here for the fixtures, but the 1-0 loss against Man United. Look, goal scoring, I'd say, is looking like a bit of an issue at the moment. Nothing to panic about, but 4 goals in the last 4 games isn't going to win you a lot of games throughout the whole season. You kind of need to be scoring 50, 60 goals minimum in the season to actually come out on top. And I think if we're averaging a goal a game at the moment, it is a slight worry. And I know there's been some links to some strikers and some more attacking players. I think that is something that we will see the squad bolstered with towards the end of the window. But let's look at Leicester's form here. They've had what you can only say has been a pretty poor pre-season, to be honest. A 2-1 win against Shrewsbury back in late July, followed by losses to Palermo, Augsburg, and Lens? I think it's Lon. Without scoring a goal in their last 3 games of pre-season. Jamie Vardy did get injured, and he's come back and scored in their game against Tottenham, where they did get a decent draw. But how do we feel Leicester are actually placed looking at those results? Do we think that pre-season speaks of a team who's maybe not quite ready for the Premier League yet? And look, the transfer window closes fairly soon. Do we expect Leicester to actually have quite a lot of work to do to bolster this squad? Dave, I'll throw to you first on that.
Yeah, but I don't know how much funds they have. They've got financial fair play issues. I think there's a lot of rumours they're going to get a points deduction. So I don't think they've got a whole lot of money, which is why they've tried to shop sensibly. Bobby Reid is a classic example of that. So yeah, I worry that they're not going to score enough goals and to stay in the league. I know they've got Jamie Vardy, and he scored it on the weekend, but the last time Jamie Vardy was in the league, he kind of disappointed really in the season they were relegated. He's definitely past his prime. And also, as Skibby's just pointed out in the chat, that they have spent a lot of their money on Skip, haven't they? From Tottenham, £20 million. So you can't see them making too many more big investments. And I'm not sure I think Skip's a good kind of workhorse, but I'm not sure he's got the quality really to open teams up and contribute with goals. So my biggest concern for them is goals. It's been evident in pre-season they've struggled with that. They might take some confidence from the Spurs game. They should, they got a good result there. But I think it's hard to come away from home in the Premier League and pick up a win and get on the score sheet. So I think really it will be our own downfall if they do. If they pick up goals, it will be off the back of mistakes rather than them tearing us open. Would be my guess.
I do think these next 4 games, they're probably going to be about as dangerous as they're ever going to be this season. I think it's hard for like a newly promoted team. I don't feel that the preseason is fully indicative, because I think that there can still be just random upsets for a very, very brief moment. So if they're going to cause an upset, it'll probably be within like these next 4 games or so, or maybe like very late into the season. That's probably my only bit of skepticism. But outside of that, long term, I don't think they're really much to worry about. Is that mean? Probably, but no.
I think.
But if you look,
go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you look at it, we've been pretty harsh on our defence, but what we're talking about is our defence's ability to play the ball out. I think as a defensive unit, stopping the ball going in the back of the net, we're pretty good. Got a very informed keeper, so I don't see us leaking a lot of goals. We just need to start scoring goals, and that contribution, I think, is always expected to be shared around, and everyone needs to start chipping in. So if we can score a couple of goals, can you really see Leicester putting 3 past us? I can't.
No, I can't.
Yeah, well, as Dave said as well, I think Leicester's big issue is going to be goal scoring. And you're right, Jamie Vardy, he turns 38 during the season. And I know, like, you've got players like Willian, who is, Willian's only just turned 36, might be 37, but it's noticeable the drop in pace, and Jamie Vardy's big asset was always his pace. Last time out, 2 years ago, when he was 35, he scored 3 goals in a full Premier League season. In the Championship, he had a better season. He scored 18 last year, but I mean, Mitro scored 46 in the Championship, so it's not that impressive, really. 18 for someone who is of the level that Jamie Vardy is at. I think he is going to struggle, and like you said, they're going to be looking at players like Bobby Decordova-Reid to actually make up the numbers and score. He's probably going to need to score 10 goals for them this season, and is that going to be a step too far with the sort of service that he's going to be getting? Probably. Are they going to be getting goals from players like Harry Winks and Oliver Skipp through the season, enough to actually, get all the way and actually survive? I don't think so at this stage. So I think there's going to be some real issues for Leicester this season, and I think they might struggle and actually potentially sit towards the bottom of the league, because I think Ipswich have shown a little bit in their opening game. I know they lost, but there's some potential there. I think with Leicester, it's going to look a lot harder for them. And like we said, they have some struggles with finances that's going to really be detrimental to them throughout the season. Look in the January transfer window, when those newly promoted clubs maybe buy 2 players to try and turn their fortunes around and stay up. Leicester just aren't going to be able to do that realistically, unless they sell players for obscene fees over the next few weeks. But we'll wait and see how that turns out. Quick look at a few injuries that Leicester have. I don't think it's anything too immediate for them to be worried about. Connor Cody obviously would probably be starting at the back for them, but Luke Thomas, Patson Daka, more squad players, so probably in a better standing than Man United were last week. Again, Fulham, no reported injuries, which is great to hear, and kind of surprising, because Fulham always seem to have niggles floating around the squad. So it's good that we've got a clean bill of health at the moment. Quick look at the table as it stands for now. Fulham obviously sitting down quite deep at the moment in 15th with no points. Hard to really actually look at the table and gain anything from this at this stage, but would be nice to see us get at least a point, if not 3 points, and move right up into the top half, and have a bit more solidarity. Look, let's jump. I know Dave has to go fairly soon, so I'll just get your opinions on these, Dave, before you jump off. Some transfer news breaking at the moment. First one, Sander Berge from Burnley. Your thoughts on Sander Berge, Dave?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. Transfer news, you can barely take your eyes off your phone for a second at the moment. Something seems to be happening every kind of hour, whether it's Here We Go from Fabio or David Ornstein reporting from The Athletic, or Fulham Fan News just kind of teasing us all with little snippets on our Discord channel of things that he's heard, which is a great reason to subscribe, by the way, if you want a little bit extra for your buck. Get on the Discord and see his little teasers. Anyway, Sander Berge, obviously it came out of nowhere. Everyone thought we were, bidding for McTominay, and that looked, at the weekend that might be a deal that was starting to get closer. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we got the notification from Fabrizio that Sander Berge had agreed a deal, 20 million plus 5 million in add-ons. And I was, there was a bit of a mixed reaction online to that news. And I kind of felt okay when I saw it. I thought, because I was concerned if we were only going to bring in one midfielder this summer, and it was McTominay, that he wasn't quite the right profile to replace João Palhinha. And, that worried me. I think McTominay is a great box crasher, and I think he's, industrious. He gets himself about, and obviously a good physical presence. But I worry that he doesn't, break up play, and that's not really his style. I think he's better further forward. So when we got Berge, I thought, well, that seems to be a better fit, because I know he played a bit more in a number 8 position last year, but generally he's played deeper. He is someone who can break up play. He's got the height on McTominay, 6'5". So we really needed that height, that aerial presence, since losing Palhinha and Tosin. So it's great to have that back, someone that can win the ball in the air at both boxes. Of course, there's a lot of skepticism because he's played in 2 teams that have been relegated, Sheffield United and Burnley, and he's played a lot of time in the Championship. I think it's difficult to pin, the classic example is Mitrovic and Kearney. They've both been relegated twice and played a lot of time in the Championship, but we'd all accept that they are good enough to be Premiership players. And I think the same can be said for Sander Berge. I think it's a good sign-in. I think it's someone that improves us. I think it can play in the 8 or the 6. I think we'll more frequently see him in the 6. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on.
And Dave, have you got time to quickly give us your opinion on the signing of Joachim Andersen as well, which looks like it's being finalised today.
Yeah, I'm really concerned, guys. I'm really concerned that Bernd Leno's going to be really bored this season because with Anderson and Bassi in front of him, I mean, I don't know what. I might have to bring a little Sudoku along to the games and just give it to him in the first half, just in case, we want to keep him motivated. But no, I'm blown away by this. Earlier in the window, I remember there was a lot of talk about Mengi from Luton and players like that replacing Tosin, and I was thinking, God, really? Is that what we're doing? And then when this link first came out to Anderson, I got really excited because I was a huge fan of his when he was here last time. I was gutted that, of course, I was gutted that we went down anyway, but we went down and lost a lot of players that summer who were good performers, just under a terrible manager. Anderson, Lamina, Areola, really became fan favorites that season for their contribution. It was just, we knew that if we'd have stayed up, Lookman's another one. I think if we'd have stayed up, we'd have kept these players, which should have been great. And Geisa, yeah. So Anderson fills a massive hole in our defense, one that's been left by Tosin. He's a player that can play the ball out. He can play the long ball. We all know he can play the long ball, but he's good at the short ball too. He can be the guy that brings the ball out from the back. I think he's a presence. I think he's good in the air. I think that he complements Bassi really well. I think they've got what he lacks in pace, Bassi makes up for. What Bassi lacks in on the ball, composure, Anderson has in abundance. I think they're a really good potential partnership. Could be one for the ages. Super excited to see how he does. I know it's a lot of money, but I think we will get 4 to 5 years out of him. And if we do, I think we'll look back on it and think money well spent.
Yeah, 100% agree. Thank you for that, Dave. I know you have to jump off now, so
Got to jump off.
Thanks for joining us today.
Nice bit of energy there, Dave. I enjoyed that.
No worries. See you soon, guys. All the best.
See you later, brother. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Sammy, I'll throw back to you. We'll talk about Sander Burge first. I'm sure, well, you might remember him playing against us last season when he was at Burnley. Scored a goal against us, 6'4", very physical presence in the middle. I know you're a massive João Palhinha fan. How do we feel with Burge potentially coming in? Do we feel like it's going to fill the hole or not quite there?
Look, I'm really simple. I just like really massive center midfielders. Like they're just fun. It's who doesn't get excited for just like a giant running around the pitch, like somewhere in the park. It's just fun. I really like him as a player. I don't really know his profile so well. He'll never replace João Palhinha for me. But you know what? I don't want him to directly replace him. I want him to come in and win my heart over in a completely different way. But he's giant, so that's half the battle. I'm actually excited for this one. I kind of don't really fully know what I'm going to get with him. But yeah, I'm excited for this guy. Like I'm actually excited for him to play in a team as well where he doesn't necessarily need to be a hero. He can actually relax into a system. I mean, playing for like Burnley. And to be fair to them, Burnley had they had a pretty good run with Company, which just didn't actualize in the Premier League. And you know what? They gave us a pretty serious game. I remember we watched that together, actually, all three of us. So look, hopefully he can shine with us because there's a hole for him to actually shine in. It just kind of remains to be seen, you know?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Dad, your thoughts? Obviously, yeah, like Sam said, it's good to see a big man in the middle, and I think it's a good point as well that he was sort of the Palhinha at Burnley, and coming into this Fulham side, he doesn't have to be that man anymore. He can sort of just become another cog, a very good cog inside the Marco Silva machine. Do you feel like that actually the sort of pressure that's going to be taken off him for his time at Fulham will actually benefit him in the long run?
Look, this signing got a bit of a mixed reaction. There's, I wouldn't say a majority, but there are a lot of people who were a bit underwhelmed by this. Not only do and we all trust Marco Silva to you pick pretty carefully. But I actually think this is a really clever signing. He is not only a big physical guy, he's actually pretty talented and he's very, very skillful. He's a good passer of the
Mm.
ball. And I mean, the one element, I mean, Polina loved his work for so many reasons and loved his passion and loved his aggression. But, you know, he wasn't the complete defensive midfielder, not for me anyway. And I actually think in some ways, whilst you won't get the out and out aggression from this guy, I think he's more composed and more contained. You probably aren't going to get 15 yellow cards a season either.
Mm.
And I think you're going to get a more kind of more of a ball playing defensive midfielder who's got the physicality to do the job that really no one in midfield has got at the
Mm.
moment. So I really like it. And I reckon this is going to work. I really feel it's going to work.
He'll definitely be closer to like a Busquets than a Polina. Like I don't really remember him intensely from the game, but I don't also remember him doing out and out anything wrong, which is actually quite a good sign. So yeah, I just don't really know.
And he scores the odd goal as well. Pretty classy goals.
Yeah.
He's a pretty all round interesting, useful player. Could be a very
And-
interesting pickup.
The other thing as well that I'll add, and it's something that you always mention, Sammy, is the fact that Marco Silva has obviously been a fan of his for a very long time. He's been
Yes.
chasing. Sander Berge has been on our list for years now, and it
Mm.
feels like he's someone that Marco really wants and really fits into Marco's perceived system and perceived style of play. So actually being able to bring in someone like Berge and sort of tick a box for Marco feels very important as well. And so that almost excites me more so than the player himself, is the fact that this is someone Marco's identified as, I want Sander Berge in my team,
Mm.
and he's finally got him, and I like that a lot. Moving on to the other signing, and Anderson, we obviously know a lot more about Anderson, having seen him previously at the club. Dad, I'll throw to you first. Having seen our struggles, especially against United, with Diop trying to play out of the back, how excited are you to know that we've got someone like Anderson who has that ability joining the first team?
Well, I don't think Anderson had many detractors at Fulham when he spent a year with us, and I'm actually astounded at how quickly this has happened because we've been suffering through this window with simply no news for a very long time, and this really only just emerged a week ago, 10 days ago, tops.
Yeah.
And it's happened very, very quickly, very decisively, and I'm thrilled to bits. I really like him as a player. As I said before, I can almost um, rate how I feel about him in terms of how much I hate playing against him because his level of concealed shithousery, like high quality shithousery, is just what you want at the back. He's I think he's got to be a big shout for the armband, and someone that I think really commands a lot of respect out on the field. Can't have too much of that. I think he's a wonderful, as Dave said, a wonderful, tasty pairing with Bassi. And as we mused last week, Tete, Anderson, Bassi, Robinson. There's a lot to love about that.
Yeah. Sammy?
So, in combination with Sessegnon and also Smith Rowe, I getting Anderson as well. It just kind of reminds me that Tony Khan is a wrestling promoter because it feels very kind of homecoming-y. It feels kind of like if anything, I'm almost a little bit like I feel that Tony Khan doesn't know that when Anderson steps on the pitch, he's not going to get like a CM Punk level pop. And I feel that Tony's going to be a little bit confused when that doesn't necessarily happen. great for us. And obviously, I could not be genuinely more excited about this. Um, it's it's odd because it's the thing that I'm actually slightly concerned about is there's a great quote that goes, you get everything you want in life, but never when you want it, um, or never exactly how you want it. And I just kind of worry that it's a little bit too good to be true, and it's a little bit too perfect, and then maybe yeah, Skibby's exactly right. And then maybe the partnership doesn't necessarily work with Bassi, and then we're back to square one. So I'm tempering my expectations. I want to go fully in on this, and I love the idea of him and Bassi so much. But until I see it like fully working, I am going to be a bit more on the conservative side on this. I know that's not necessarily what you guys thought I was going to say about it. Obviously, I'm super stoked that he's going to be here, and I really, if it's, I know it hasn't even been done, but it feels like it's going to be done. And I think just long term, he really is kind of potentially like a bit of our if the signing does go through and he's with us for the next 5 years, I think you do build a future with Anderson being the main guy in the back line, the main kind of like big presence. Because I know Leno is currently wearing the armband and he's kind of the default presence, but it's got to be Anderson going forward, and I think that also provides a lot more to the players as well, because I would love to have seen somebody last year to kind of go, okay, here's who's going to be the guy to lead us next season. But I just didn't necessarily see that as much as I would want to. I mean, I really liked BDR with the armband. I did like Harrison Reed with the armband, but it was kind of just like a bit more of a, that's nice. This feels like a, this is a really good thing. That's a really good building block for potentially a really whole new phase of the silver system, and really optimistic. But I'm just holding back ever so slightly, and then when everything gets actualized, I'm going to be really annoying for the rest of the season.
I actually think that we got a taste of Anderson under a manager that, you know, really where it all went to shit. I actually think we're going to look back on this in 5-10 years time and think that this was the start of really the turning point, the start of something at Fulham. I really believe that.
I do as well, but that's a really big call, isn't it? It's a really big call.
But I guess big calls are there to be made because you don't really see them until you look back on them. But the other little twist that I like of this is that, you know, we're Kenny Tete's started the last couple of games, had a couple of really good games, but there's always that little question mark as to whether he can undertake all the duties that we need. Anderson comes in and actually commands that back line and actually is the outlet, which actually I think gives Kenny another lease of life as being the front runner for that fullback position.
Oh, see, I kind of disagree. I reckon if Anderson comes in, I think that's when you rely on like the classiness of Castagna and the control and composure of Castagna, because you have this really strong physicality with Anderson there. So then you don't necessarily need a Tete there, and then you can bring him in for specific games where you require it. There's just so many options. There's so like it's really
What do you think about that?
Well, I would say having Anderson there means you have the capacity to play Tete, because Tete, I think, is a better pure defender, and I think you actually want in the Premier League, where wingers are often key to changing games, you want someone like Kenny to completely shut down a winger and not have, and then he doesn't have to be relied on to play the ball out of the back. He can just give it to Anderson, who can sort the ball out from there. And hopefully, if we sign someone like an Andre, and we've got Sander Berge in front of him now, you can play the ball calmly into those guys, and they can deal with the ball as well. So
Or Pereira.
I think the signing of Anderson actually opens up the possibilities
Yep.
for us, and I think it allows us to play someone like Tete, similarly to being able to play Robinson. And he's a good defender, but he's an attacking player first and foremost. Really, he's an attacking fullback who does well getting down the outside. So you have to have players like Bassi who has pace and physicality to cover him, and therefore we have Anderson being able to cover for Kenny Tete's weaknesses effectively. So
It's more
it's
his style. It's his style. It's not his weakness.
yeah,
It's his preference.
I'd call it weaknesses, because he's weak as a ball playing fullback, because that's not his style. It's nothing against him, because he's still okay with the ball at his feet, but he's not a Robinson, who again is okay with the ball at his feet. I wouldn't even say Robinson's brilliant with the ball at his feet, but it does, like Sam said, it opens up options for us where we can chop and change a bit for different situations. And if we feel like we're going to be flying forward, if it turns out that Ipswich or Southampton or even Leicester, when we play them later in the season, are just absolute toast and have nothing going for them down the wings, all of a sudden you go, you know what, we can play Castagna because we're not going to be challenged at all down the right. Let's actually play a completely different style. And, as Colm says on our live stream here as well, someone like Cuenca can potentially come in with a back three of Bassi, Cuenca and Anderson. And you basically have Robinson effectively playing on the wing. And then it opens up so many options for us now. The fact that we've got a bit of squad depth, whereas last season we were looking at players like Reed, Decordova-Reid, Tim Ream, and going, oh, if you really have to, you could play Tim Ream at left back. But if we do that, then maybe we have to play Bassi at right centre back. And it just was all over the shop, basically. But now, and I shared the depth chart on our Discord earlier today, and the depth of the squad is starting to look really tasty, where our second 11, I think, is good enough to effectively be a team that would stay up. I'd say you put our second 11 out against Leicester and we'd actually give them a fairly good game. And that's where you want to be as a mid-table Premier League side, because that means if you have a very good season, you're basically pushing those European spots. And then you can get rid of those players who are the backups and bring in some more talent, or bring in some talent above your current first team. And those current players like Sasa Lukic as a backup player is a really good option. Andreas Pereira, potentially a backup player to come off the bench for us, or a rotation player. It really does look like we're in a position now where we've made some really good signings this summer, and kind of upgraded in every position where we've lost depth. Admittedly, not with Polina, who was one of the best defensive midfielders in world football, really. So you're never going to be able to realistically upgrade him. But everywhere else, Tim Ream has been upgraded to Cuenca. Sessegnon, you'd say, is we didn't really have another left back. Smith Rowe is definitely an upgrade on someone like a Willian, if you base it on Willian's last season. Sander Berge, an upgrade in the centre. It's definitely looking like we're in a really good spot at the moment. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble there.
No, it's fine. The only thing I want to add is I just really want Anderson to actually just want to. I know how this sounds, but I just really want him to actually want to come back to Fulham. And I hope this isn't just kind of like a logistical, we've turned down a financial offer that he can't refuse. I hope he genuinely understands what we actually kind of want from him. Because him moving from Crystal Palace is a bit of a weird one. I mean, there's some people who could definitely argue it might even be considered a bit of a step down, or at least a step across.
Palace fans definitely are, yeah.
Yeah. So it is kind of a weird chat. I mean, you would think that he would be going to another upper echelon club, whereas he's actually just kind of moving across to a club where, if anything, there's going to be more responsibility on him. So I hope he understands that and is genuinely excited about taking that as an opportunity, and that's why he's coming over. Because for me, that's the best case scenario. But again, I just don't know. And it, because it's not the same as when Sessegnon or even Smith Rowe came, where they've clearly been
for lack of a better word, like rejected or not necessarily thought of by their respected teams, and so they're coming for a fresh start. That's not Anderson's situation at all. So I don't really know his full intentions, why he would actually want to be here outside of either just money or.
Well, I think Palace look like they're taking steps backwards at this stage, being totally realistic about it. They sold Elise. Wouldn't be overly surprised if Eze had a couple of offers coming in towards the end of the window.
Definitely.
There's a lot of rumbling about their manager as well being a little bit off kilter, maybe. He had a really good run, Oliver Glasner, and where he turned Palace round at the end of last season and pushed them right up the table. But I think he's quite strong in his way of thinking. They're also probably going to lose Gay at the back. It feels like Palace were in a really good spot, and all of a sudden things are being sort of pulled apart. They've only signed a couple of players, and it's not huge signings. Ismail Assar from Marseille, a couple of free transfers, Chadi Riyad from Betis, but losing Elise, who was easily their best player last season. It just feels like they're not making steps forward. But when you actually look at what Fulham are doing in the transfer market and the sort of the storyline and the way that Marco wants to build this team, it feels like there's more things happening at Fulham than there are at Palace at the moment. And Palace fans, come at me, feel free, but it just feels like that's where we're at the moment.
It feels a little bit to me, well, it's possible that there could have been a bit of a falling out there, between Anderson and the manager.
Maybe.
And why wouldn't you be interested in Marco Silva project? He's got a good reputation. They can obviously, players can see what he's doing, and I would imagine that the couple of signings we've done, and you can see the ambition at Fulham suddenly, and I think it's possible that Joachim Andersen, if he was the first player off the rank at the start of the window, he may not have come.
Yeah, for sure. It's been really good business by the Khans this summer, to be perfectly honest. And look, before we move on from the transfers, just a few little things coming out of our Discord at the moment. With Cherky, who was hoping to move to PSG, but now his agent is at Motspur Park today and is also going to Palace as well today. So could be another signing with Steele off Palace before the end of the window. And obviously you would have probably seen, well, most people might have seen, if you haven't, please do look it up, the scenes at the end of Fluminense's most recent game where they won through in the round of 16 of the Copa Libertadores, and Andre's reaction post-game, sitting out on the pitch, looking quite upset really at maybe the end of his 12 years at Fluminense coming to a close. Obviously, a few rumours abounding from Fluminense fans that they think that was his farewell, and maybe we see him move to Fulham in the next few days. But look, we'll keep you in the loop. Please do join our Discord. Like we've said before, there's a lot of inside information floating around on the Transfer News channel, so a very good place to be. Let's move on, guys, to a segment that we brought back last week, Jack's Top Tip. I've moved it very slightly, changed the goalposts a little bit, and I'm doing a safe tip and a risky tip this week. So safe tip first, still very profitable as a $19 multi-bet. Muniz, anytime goal scorer. I think it's going to be time for Muniz to actually get that one off his back against a Leicester defence where I think he's going to give him the runaround. As a few people have said on our live stream in the chat, Vestergaard is going to get a torrid time from a very physical Muniz who was having to be held off multiple times by 3 defenders against Man United. So I think this is the game where we see Muniz get his first goal of the season. Smith Rowe, one shot on target effectively for the game. I feel like Smith Rowe looked like he wasn't quite ready for this game against Man United, that is. I think we're going to see a little bit more out of him in the game against Leicester. And finally, both teams to score. I do feel like Leicester are going to get something here because I just feel like it's going to be a struggle for us to keep a clean sheet. being early season, it feels like a kind of 2-1 kind of win for Fulham. So yeah, 3 legs there. It's giving me odds of 19-1. Let's have a look at the risky tip. This one's a little bit more precise. I'm going Rodrigo Muniz, first goal scorer. Going with a De Cordova-Reid, 1 shot on target for the game. That's 1 or more shots on target. Both teams to score as it was before, and Sasa Lukic, player to be booked in the game. That one's paying 71-1.
Please
As always,
gamble
bet
responsibly.
But yeah, Dad, Sam, thoughts on that? Am I miles off the mark? Are you putting some money on?
This Sasa Lukic one is really weird.
It is, but I just feel it. I think he's. My thought process there is he's trying to fill the hole of João Palhinha, and I saw him dive into a few little tackles, and I just feel like he's just not. He's not João Palhinha, and so he's going to fly into a
Oh,
tackle
true.
and get a yellow card. I just feel like that's going to happen, or maybe it'll be Jamie Vardy streaking away, and maybe Silva said to Tom Kearney during the week, "You really should have fouled Fernandes there." If you'd fouled him, we probably wouldn't have conceded against Man United. And I feel like that might be ringing in Sasa Lukic's head at some point on Saturday, and he's going to get a booking. You've heard it here first.
No, he is pretty unhinged in a bit of a he's a bit more of a stab you with the cleats more so than go for your calf muscle kind of player. But no, I feel like you're onto something there. Yeah. If you told me Sasa Lukic just constantly carries around a pocket knife, 100% would believe you.
It's possible. I'll tell you now. Sasa Lukic always carries around a pocket knife.
Well, there
Clip
you go.
that.
Okay. Please gamble responsibly.
Weird segment. Love it. Guys, to wrap up, I'd just like to find the slide firstly, but talk about the Fulham women's team who had their first game of the season. It was a pretty good preseason for Fulham women's. They played against teams solely in the division above, effectively. And so the results weren't, well, they were sort of as you'd expect with a number of losses, but some good draws in there as well. But it does prove when you come into the season that pitting yourself against higher opposition, actually works. And we saw Fulham walk out at Craven Cottage in front of over 15,000 people, which is a great turnout, with a 6-0 victory against Barking, who were in the division below Fulham last season and went through the entire season undefeated. I think they only had 3 draws and won every other game for the season. So a really good result for Fulham, who've made a couple of really good signings in the off-season. Evie Gain at centre-back added a lot of stability. Lily Stevens in centre mid was pulling the strings for the majority of the game. Ellie Olds is back from injury. She got on the score sheet twice, which was great to see. And Amber Webber in goal as well, who obviously didn't actually have much to do. I don't think she made any. She made saves, but they were from free kicks from a distance, and the ball sort of bouncing into her arms most of the time. So wasn't really tested, but looked really comfortable with the ball at her feet, which I think is going to work really well for us for the rest of the season. Sam, I'll throw to you first. How important do you think it is to get off to a good start, considering last season the sort of place where Fulham potentially lost out on promotion was in those first few games, so we just had a couple of little slip-ups. Do you think Steve J, the coach, has maybe drummed that into the girls this season that we need to get off to a good start?
I mean, I think with Fulham women's, it's always just going to be a question of when, not if. And it's really difficult. I feel that most people just don't necessarily understand that. Isn't it just one team goes up, and there's a lot of logistics that go around that. It's extremely difficult. So it's not necessarily a critique on them that they didn't actually go up into the league. It's literally just, I mean, all you need to do is just finish 1 point below the competition, and then that's it. You're just not considered until the following season. So I think that, I mean, look, the team is strong. They've still got Manzi. I love Tagliafico. I want Tagliafico to get a shout out, scored a goal, and I just she was my favorite player from everything I saw last season. So look, the squad is still strong. It should be infinitely stronger than the rest of the league. And you know what? If even if it takes like another season as well, they will go up. It's they just kind of can't not. And fortunately as well, there's no rush to this because as like the women's football like builds and the women's prem builds, um all that just means is by the time they actually get there, there'll be a lot more eyes on it. So it's definitely not the end of the world. And yeah, they're 100% in the right place.
Yeah, Dad. Fulham women last year only lost 3 games across the course of the 22-game season. They drew 3 as well, but Dartford, who finished second, only lost 3. Dulwich Hamlet only lost 2, and both those teams only drew 1 game last season. How important do you think it is based on that? And, the girls would 100% have that in the back of their mind, that those early little slip-ups, I think it was a draw against a team who finished mid-table last season, and some early losses to some big promotion rivals definitely dented the goal was obviously to get promoted. And you look at the start of this season so far, Ebbsfleet United, who I think they finished mid-table last season, they won their opening game 7-0. So teams are setting the bar very high very early on. Do you think I'll frame it more positively. Do you think it's as important to get those good results early doors? And do you think that's definitely going to be in the back of their minds right at the very start of this season?
Well, I think you've just explained it mathematically. It's so difficult to get promoted. You can effectively only lose 1 game and possibly draw 1, maybe 2, to be safe as the winner, right? That's it. So to execute that perfectly, even if you have, you take an unchanged squad from last year, over a long season, it's very, very difficult to do with injuries and just shit that does happen. So the only way to really improve your chances are to trade up and keep investing in the team. They've done that. And so now it's over to Steve and the girls to deliver that. But you literally, it's a really tough ask. You literally cannot slip up. One outside game, and you kind of, yeah, you could. I reckon you could probably afford to lose 1 and 1 only, and that's it.
Oh, easily.
I mean, it's true. You look at how it went last season, and admittedly, that Dulwich Hamlet team that got promoted were very strong. But you look at the Dartford team, who we beat at Craven Cottage 4-0 at the end of the season, and they finished, I think it was 4 points above us as well by the end of the season. So it just shows that you can't have those early slip-ups, early doors, and this is just a really positive result because of that. Seeing the team come out and be clinical and actually put a team to the sword and go, we're not leaving this one to chance. They were obviously the better side, and I think for the majority of our opening games, and
quite a long way.
Yeah, we do have a fairly good run of games to start the season. We play Millwall Lionesses coming up. Another, we got Ashford United. So it is definitely a run of games where we can look to get off to a great start. And look, if you do finish those first 5 being 5 and zip, you put a lot of pressure on the competition around you. And like you said, if one of those teams like Ebbsfleet slips up in the next couple of weeks and draws a game, you just open that gap up very quickly. And I can see that gap being really important for the rest of the season. Sammy?
Just a really, really quick shout out as well. They do have a better kit than the men's team as well. Like, I'm so jealous that they have the AEW logo, because it's like Pizza Hut level tier great shit. I really, really hope we get that next season, because the second I saw that, I was like, I'm jealous, because it looks so boss. It's like I love when like teams are sponsored by like Doc Martens, or like, do you remember when Atletico Madrid was sponsored by Spider-Man 2? Like, that's just awesome. Like, bring that back. I want to see AEW on the shirt next season, because the women do it and it's great.
And I'll tell you, the most annoying thing is you can't even buy that shirt. So I'm going to have to use our contacts to see if I can get a dodgy one on the sly from someone. But yeah, I agree. I actually love that shirt. I think AEW as a sponsor on the front looks great, because it's just a clean wrestling logo compared to a
Really
betting
want it.
sponsor, or even like Go Mongolia, which is just it's kind of iconic in how incredibly random Go Mongolia is. But AEW on the front of the shirts next season, I would absolutely love to see that.
That'd be so rad.
Guys, I think we can probably wrap it up there. Looking forward to the one this weekend. It's not a 3 a.m. kickoff for us over here in Australia, which is going to be joyful to be able to actually watch it and have a good night's sleep off the back of it. Sam, I'll throw to you. What's your prediction for the game?
I'm gonna say 2-0. 2-0 Fulham. I feel happy with that shout, and if nothing else, it should be 2-0. So yeah, I'm gonna rock with 2-0.
Killed my top tip straight away. Dad, your prediction for the game?
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1. I think whilst we've been very gentle, very accommodating, and very patient with Rodrigo Muniz, it is time for him to actually do a job on their defenders. It's an opportunity because he's better than them, and he needs to get on the board. And if he does, I think if he gets one, surely there's another goal around from Iwobi or ESR or who knows who else.
Yeah. Look, I think we're looking at a 3-1 victory here. I agree. I think Muniz is going to hit the score sheet, but I feel like we're probably going to go 3-0 up and then concede, not late, but concede at sort of the 70th, 80th minute or something like that. I just see this being the moment where it all starts to click. And also you have some players like Anderson and Berge probably coming off the bench later in the game and maybe having an impact. And us just sort of overwhelming Leicester by the end of the game. So yeah, I'm going to go with a 3-1 win to Fulham there. Guys, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's been good to prep this one, and I'm looking forward to this game. Sammy, thanks for joining.
Thank you very much for having me. I would have a quip, but my brain is fading. I am significantly tired, and I think my last bit of energy was just spent fantasizing about seeing Anderson back at the Cottage, and after that, I got nothing more. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and yeah, words done.
Good, lovely wrap up. Dad, thanks for joining tonight.
Thank you. I am really looking forward to the weekend. Actually, I'm looking forward to see. Well, hopefully we do see Anderson and Burge on the bench. I'm also kind of hopeful that something breaks with Andre, but maybe I'm just being too optimistic.
Yeah, no, we could easily have some news by the weekend about that. So that would make life even more exciting. Having Andre parade around the pitch at halftime as a new signing would be very Brazilian, actually. So I'd quite like to see that. Thank you to everyone who's
shirt.
Yeah, waving a scarf around his head like Muhammad Al Fayed. I'd love that. Guys, thank you to everyone who's joined us on the live stream for this podcast. We really appreciate the support as always. Thank you to everyone who continues to download and listen. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple, anywhere you get your podcasts. And do make sure you join our Discord, follow us on Twitter, everywhere on social media. We are everywhere. So please do continue to support. And as always, come on, you Whites.